Hello, thank you everyone for attending today. Today's presentation is Dementia versus Alzheimer's, and it is brought to you by Patricia Paishoki. I apologize, Patricia, because I just realized I did not verify how to pronounce your last name, and it's a difficult one. She's the program director of the Institute for Excellence in Memory Care. Patricia is a graduate of Indiana University and is a educational specialist who has worked in the memory care field for over 27 years. She is certified through the National Council for Therapeutic Recreation Certification, the Alzheimer's Foundation of America as a certified dementia care partner, an expressive arts and long-term care trainer through the University of Indianapolis, and is a certified Montessori and dementia care professional by the International Council of Certified Dementia Practitioners. In November of 2019, Patricia received training from the Vivium Dementia Village consulting team as they embrace the vision and help create the foundation of the new Milton Village in Roseland, Indiana in the fall of 2021. In July 2020, Patricia and the Institute for Excellence in Memory Care received full international endorsement by the Vivium B consulting team. So now Patricia will begin the presentation. And if there are questions, feel free to type them into the questions box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So today we are going to be talking about Alzheimer's versus dementia. So today we're going to be talking about recognizing the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, identify factors that could cause delirium that looks like dementia. We're going to recognize the three most common dementia diseases. We're going to summarize retrogenesis and how functional abilities change during the disease process, and identify common neurological deficits related to common dementia diseases. So let's begin and chat a little bit about Alzheimer's versus dementia. So many individuals, maybe some of your clients out there might have been diagnosed with the diagnosis of dementia. Well, that's no different than saying you've been diagnosed with a cold or the sniffles or cancer, etc., because that's very broad terminology, because what we need to do is actually find out more of the true dementia diseases, the specific dementia diseases, because dementia in itself is really what we call an umbrella term to refer to a group of symptoms. Okay, so it's not a diagnosis, it's not a disease. Dementia is not a disease at all. It's just a group of symptoms. So if I go to a doctor and I come to the doctor or nurse practitioner and I tell them I've got a runny nose, I've got scratchy eyes, I feel kind of punky, I don't feel 100%, what could I have? Well, the doctor could look at me and say, well, I could have a cold, a flu, COVID-19, I could have pneumonia, I could have many different things. But then there's a specific type of, symptom, specifically related to what my diagnosis. And I tell this doctor, well, I've got a scratchy eyes, and it usually happens when I go outside, I have the windows open overnight. I do feel better after I'm inside the house with the air conditioning. Aha, well, now you've got, instead of COVID, it's now more of an allergy. And so what we're trying to say is that there are a group of symptoms that are very specific to a diagnosis. And that's what really dementia is. Dementia is a broad term for a group of symptoms. And so when an individual, say a client of yours, goes to the doctor and has things like what we're going to talk about here in just a second, cognitive loss and disorientation and so on, well, what they're going to try to figure out is what is a specific type of symptom that could be related to eventually a dementia disease, like Alzheimer's, Lewy body, frontal temporal, many others. So what are the things that the doctors are going to be looking for? They're going to be looking for dementia, a group of symptoms. So dementia could be things like cognitive loss and thinking skills. So individuals maybe a year ago were able to pay their bills or take their medications on time or plan things out, like when they go to the grocery store, they know where, they need celery, so they're going to go to the produce department. They're going to have to get some lunch meat. They're going to go to the deli. So they have those planning skills. When, as the disease progresses, they're not going to be able to really focus on those cognitive skills, more of those advanced ADLs, if you will. So they're going to have more difficulty. They're going to have difficulty with poor judgment and reasoning. So here in the South Bend area, they're expecting some pretty bad weather, I guess, this afternoon or so, I've been told. So if I say watch out for the thunderstorms, if I say there's a thunderstorm warning out, individuals with dementia would not understand what that means. With that, the poor judgment and reasoning, they will still go for a walk and forget about the bad weather. Or maybe they'll go for a car ride, and because of the thunderstorm, they'll get disoriented, and so now they have poor judgment and reasoning, and they could, unfortunately, get off their track. Poor safety awareness. Did they take their meds? Were they able to take a shower with the right temperature? Loss of memory. I know who you are. You look familiar to me, but I'm not sure how you fit into my life. I just recently, this morning, I spoke to a family member who said the hardest part about Alzheimer's and dementia was to have their loved one know that this person is important to them, but they don't know how they fit in. And so that's what she told her husband this weekend, is that I know you're important to me, I just don't know who you are. So loss of memory, loss of rational and abstract thinking. I still remember having an individual get up at 2 o'clock in the morning because she said her appointment's at 2 o'clock. Well, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not 2 o'clock in the morning. So that rational thinking skills was off. Abstract, thinking about things like, hopefully none of you are looking at the clock right now, but you and I would know 1 hour presentation. So probably around the 45, 50-minute mark, you probably think, well, this presentation is going to be over pretty soon. But with a person with dementia, 1 hour might seem like several days, or 5 minutes might feel like an hour. So they don't have those thinking skills like you and I would have. Visual spatial skills start to change. So these individuals might have something what we call brain blindness. So what they see, the brain cannot interpret any longer. So now they're having difficulty figuring out what that shadow is. Is it a person on the floor, or is it a shadow of the lamp that's coming through the window? Functional losses. So now these individuals are going to have difficulty functioning. Their ADLs are going to start going away. So maybe a year ago, they're able to bathe and dress and shower and be able to take care of themselves independently. And now these individuals are having more difficulty remembering, did they rinse off the shampoo? Did they use soap? How do I put these socks on? Do I put them over my shoes, or do I put the socks on before my shoes? So functional losses, as the disease progresses, starts to become more lost. Disorientation. As I said, maybe a bad thunderstorms, they're driving, they're able to get home, but now with a bad storm, they may not be able to remember where they are located, and next thing you know, they might cause an accident. Or even simple enough, a person who might have lived in their home for 50 plus years might be disoriented in their home because all the doors look alike. So now they're trying to run to the bathroom, and they're opening the closet door and the bedroom door and the kitchen door and the door down to the basement, and they can't find the bathroom, and they get upset. And by the time they find it, they might avoid it. Impulsivity and short attention span. So these individuals might have difficulty focusing on a task. For some individuals, as a rec therapist, I can tell you as doing programs for individuals with dementia, sometimes 30 minutes was wonderful if I was able to get these folks to be able to focus for 30 minutes. Sometimes it's a winning game if it's 15 minutes or 10 or even 1 minute, because of the fact that, again, attention span might be lessened as time goes on. For impulsivity, we have to think about our environment. And as a person who's living with ADHD all my life, I know environment can really be hard for individuals to focus. And so it's very easy for a person with dementia where they're focusing on something and all of a sudden, oh, there it is. There's the neighbor cutting the grass. Or, oop, I heard a bell. Is that bell for me? Or, oop, there's a TV. And next thing you know, they're walking around the house holding onto their toothbrush with a bunch of toothpaste running down their mouth because of the fact that they forgot to rinse their mouth because something kind of got their attention. And next thing you know, they're walking around with a bunch of toothpaste. Loss of concentration. So again, these individuals might focus so much at the best of their ability, and now it's lost. They don't remember what they were focusing on. So dementia, again, and all of these that you see here, it's just a small little listing. There are several. I didn't want to go through all of them, but these are just very common symptoms of dementia. And again, dementia diseases such as Alzheimer's and Lewy and Parkinson's dementia and frontal temporal lobe, they all have these symptoms in their unique way. Now, again, dementia is not a disease. They're just a group of symptoms. And so when a client of yours might have a dementia diagnosis, it just might mean that a doctor is seeing these symptoms and the symptomology, and maybe there needs to be some more work done, maybe going to a neurologist or a neuropsychologist or another specialist who can really focus on really understanding which dementia disease is more likely for the person to have. So who exactly gets dementia? Well, first and foremost, it's not a normal part of aging. I'm sure if I ask all of you right now, you probably can tell me that you have worked with individuals or know some individuals who are over 100 years old and are as sharp as a tack. And that's good. I worked over at University of Notre Dame for many years, and I worked with the priests and brothers, and I had a brother who was over 100 years old and is a big Cubs fan. And whenever I would call this brother up, I would ask how their Cubs, and he would tell me everything about the previous game. Who pitched, how was Anthony Rizzo doing? Who did a great play? What was the final score? He was able to tell me everything at 102 years old. So again, it's not a normal part of aging. Not all older people get dementia. Now, it's more common after age 65. However, people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s can also have dementia. So yes, younger people can also have dementia. And so as community members, as individuals who are working with clients, we need to keep that in consideration. So there are two different types of dementias that we're going to talk about today: a reversible type of dementia and a non-reversible type of dementia. Now, the reversible type of dementia is all related to something what we call delirium. So if I ask all of you, how many of you have ever been delirious in your life, I'm sure that all of you would be raising your hands and telling me, yes, I have had delirium, especially if you had the flu, a cold, COVID, under anesthesia, anything like that. If you had a condition and you felt punky enough, or if I gave you a checkbook and I asked you to balance the checkbook, and you would sit there and look at me and think, I can't do this, I can't function, I can't think straight, then that's called delirium. Now, once you got better, once you got hydrated, once you had medications, once you had rest or therapy or whatever it might be, suddenly you sprung back to normal again. So that's delirium. So what we always tell our clients out there, if we have somebody who says, I think I may have Alzheimer's, I'm becoming more forgetful, things are happening, I feel like I'm always short-minded, something's going on, we always express that we have to make sure that our clients are going to the doctor, going to get their healthcare provider to be seen. And during this time, what they're going to do is to rule out, is it a reversible dementia or is it a non-reversible, such as an Alzheimer's or another type of progressive disease. But what physicians are looking for are those reversible things that can be reversed and suddenly this person feels better. So what are they looking for? They're looking for infections. In our elders, our number one reason for delirium is a urinary tract infection, especially those individuals who might be wearing incontinence products. So briefs, pull-ups, anything of that nature. So a urinary tract infection, if any of you worked with any elders who've had one, Sometimes these individuals can change overnight. They were perfect yesterday morning, but by this morning when you walked into work, suddenly these individuals are very confused and agitated. They might be hallucinating or have some delusions. So infections are main reasons that many of our elders might have a reversible dementia. Medication side effects. I call our elders, and we still have some elders out there, who what I call the chicken soup generation. These are individuals who really self-medicated themselves at home. They're the ones who high-five themselves. They haven't been to the hospital. They don't like going to the doctor, and they can take care of themselves. They don't need anybody. So these are individuals, if they had the cold or flu, they ate the chicken soup. Or if they had a sore throat, they took a shot of whiskey. Or maybe if Granny had a sore knee, you could smell her 5 miles away because she was overcoating herself with a bunch of Bengay. So those folks are the medication rejected people. They don't like to take meds. Suddenly, Granny goes to nursing home or assisted living, or she actually breaks down and goes to the doctor. And suddenly, instead of the chicken soup or the Bengay, suddenly Grandma has to have tramadol or another type of medication for pain. Or she has allergies. Instead of just dealing with it, she's now told that she has to take a Benadryl. So now Granny, who is all self-sufficient, is now taking these medications, which may be very, very powerful for her. Now, we also have to remind ourselves that some of our elders have some side effects because of things that we don't think about. We forget that some of our elders like to stay up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they watch those infomercials, and they see that there's this pill made out of a jellyfish or some crazy little weed somewhere out in, somewhere in the rainforest. And so they pay this medication, they come in, they pop a few pills, and they forget that some of those medications can actually have side effects. And guess what it could be? It can cause delirium. So medication side effects could be also reversible. So when an elder might be having have issues with their memory, that's another thing that physicians are going to be looking at. All medications, not just the ones that are prescribed, but all medications, even those herbal supplements, teas, even salves are very, very important. Thyroid problems can cause a dementia, vitamin deficiency, especially here in northern Indiana. We've got a lot of vitamin D deficiency in the winter months because vitamin D is seen in the sun, and it's a natural vitamin that we make, and it actually helps with memory and mood and many other things. So sometimes our elders really need more vitamin D during the winter months or when it's really cloudy out. Dehydration, malnutrition, blood sugars high or low, anesthetic fog. My father had carpal tunnel surgery a few years back, and my father was really kind of what I call cobwebs up in the attic. He just had these issues for a good week. He just couldn't think. He was very upset with himself because he couldn't keep focus. And when we talked to the doctor's like, oh yeah, that's cobwebs up in the attic. It's all the anesthesia. It just takes a while. And sure enough, a week later, he was back to normal again. Depression is really, really big with our elders. Untreated and situational depression, especially with our gentlemen out there, because there's certain cultures where these gentlemen, if they admit they're depressed, they might be seen as the weak member of the family. And of course, you would never want to be known as the weak member of the family, so they don't want to get treated for depression. Even if it's something as simple as talking therapy, or even maybe some chemistry is needed and they have a really light antidepressant. But again, many of our elders are unfortunately not diagnosed with depression, which can cause a type of reversible dementia. Stress, alcohol, and drug abuse. And guess what? There's a lot of CBD out there, and I just live maybe about 2 miles away from the Michigan border. And so a lot of individuals, especially seniors, are hitting a little bit of the CBD and the weed. So we have to ask our elders out there, Grandma, have you been visiting, the marijuana a little bit? And I know it sounds funny, but we had a lot of elders for using CBD and trying to have pain management utilizing some of the marijuana that's out there, especially in some of our states that are available. So if any of you are around the Illinois border or Michigan border, you might see that. Tumors, acute medical conditions, as well as hormonal disorders. So again, this is what our physicians are going to be looking at. They're going to be looking, is it something that can be easily treated with a medication or maybe therapy or physical therapy or something else that could be, again, if it's treated in time, can be reversed. Now I said treated in time. If any of these are untreated, yes, if a person has the ability, if it's the genetic link for a dementia disease, these things, if it's not treated in a timely manner, can actually accelerate some of the dementia diseases that we're going to be talking about. So let's talk about the non-reversible dementias. Now, all of these are progressive and permanent. I know there are medications out there. There was a new one that was just released. There's many medications out there, but I'm going to be very honest with you. The only thing that those medications will do is treat symptomology. It is not going to cure Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or Lewy. There's no silver bullet. And I don't care what kind of infomercials are out there. Really, any of those medications are just going to help with symptomology. So again, I'm going to be really honest. If anybody asks about medications and so on, I never ever talk about meds because that's between you and your physician. So between non-reversible dementias, the first one is Alzheimer's. The second one is actually what we consider a non-organic, and that is a multi-infarct or vascular dementia. It has everything to do with the vascular system. There's no rogue protein, unlike with Alzheimer's and Lewy, that is affecting the brain. The third one that is most common is dementia with Lewy bodies. Now, we're going to talk about Lewy body dementia here in a second and how unique the symptomology for each and every one of these dementia diseases happens to be. So these are different types of irreversible dementias that we would like to talk about. So Parkinson's disease does have a Parkinson's dementia. Now, not all individuals with Parkinson's disease will get dementia, but if a person's living with Parkinson's and suddenly they're starting to have some unique type of behavioral, such as hallucinations, delusions, confabulations, maybe they're having some changes with medication usage, then a person could have Parkinson's dementia. Vascular dementia, as I said, is the only dementia disease that is non-organic. All the other ones that you see here all have to do with changes in the chemical, all are organic, and some type of protein has gone rogue. In vascular dementia, it means that a person has had already some vascular issues going on, some precursors, if you will. So many of these individuals might have had heart disease, they might have had maybe a stroke, maybe they've had a heart attack, maybe they had high cholesterol levels, whatever it might be, that these individuals are already having some vascular insufficiencies going on with the person's body. Now, if it's not handled in time, guess what? It goes up into the person's brain. And that's what they call mild infarct dementia, or MID. What happens with this individual is that they have these little miniature strokes, what they call TIAs, or transient ischemic attacks. And these tiny little strokes, unfortunately, will hit different areas of the brain at any time. So unlike with Alzheimer's disease or any of the other ones that are listed here, which kind of has a trajectory, we have an idea how things change, communication factors, and so on. With a person with vascular, it's kind of whenever that particular little mini stroke and where it's at what time. So 1 minute, snap, there's a mini stroke over here in the communication. And then the person gets a little bit better, and guess what? Snap, there's another one. This time it's in the visual area. And so the person gets a little bit better, and snap, there's another one. This time it's over in the communication. Now the person can't read very well, and then it continues and continues. So unfortunately, unlike all the rest of these diseases, where we can kind of have an idea of how the disease progresses, When it comes to vascular, it's kind of whenever those little mini strokes and how they affect are going to be taking place. Now, with vascular dementia, what's very unique is that I call this a piggyback dementia because of the fact that vascular dementia can happen with any of these diseases. And to be honest, any disease can be what they call a combination, but the most common combination dementia is vascular with Alzheimer's, or vascular with Lewy, vascular with Parkinson's dementia, etc., etc. The reason for why we see more vascular than any of these others as being doubled, because in North America, we have places called McDonald's and Burger King and Culver's and Long John Silver's, and we usually drive through and we don't eat those wonderful Mediterranean diets, and we have high stress, and we've got other factors. So unfortunately, vascular dementia is probably the most common form of combination dementia, along with another dementia disease. So vascular dementia. Lewy body dementia is, again, the third most common. It is actually a brother of Parkinson's dementia because both of them have a protein called a Lewy body that is starting to affect the person's brain. So with Lewy body dementia, it has become more popular. I can say popular. It's been more exposed. Let's use that word. More exposed in the last few years because of comedian Robin Williams, who died of Lewy body dementia. And because of his passing, more physicians, more words, more information and education has been more brought out into our community. So now physicians, instead of thinking automatically Alzheimer's, now physicians have a toolbox full of different information, and now Lewy body is now part of that. So more and more individuals are being diagnosed with Lewy body today than they were even 5-10 years ago because of the new information that's out there. Unfortunately, we lost Robin Williams, but his passing actually allowed individuals and physicians to be finally diagnosed correctly. Now, the first thing you see with Lewy body dementia is usually a sleep disturbance. Sometimes family members call that maybe a night terror. So they act out their dreams, which is very common for Lewy body. The second part that's very common, falls. They fall all the time. And I know as a person who cared for individuals with Lewy, sometimes I wish I could bubble wrap my poor individuals because they would constantly fall. They did everything in their power, but it was just that they ended up on the floor. Gravity wasn't their friend. The other thing that's very common with Lewy body are the hallucinations and delusions, confabulation. And for these individuals, sometimes those hallucinations and delusions are so real, and yet people don't believe them. And it's not that they have psychotic situations, it's the fact it's delusional. It happens to be because of their brain changing. It's just firing differently. Also, what's very common for Lewy body is the fact that these are hypersensitive to medications. A medication for you and I that might make us tired might actually make these individuals very sick. They might have to go to the hospital. So if you have a loved one who has been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia or even Parkinson's dementia, and you know that they have a hypersensitivity to a medication, make sure that they are wearing either an alert bracelet or people around them know that they're hypersensitive, because the last thing you want is for them to go to emergency room and all of a sudden they're given a medication that actually can really hurt them more than makes them better. Frontal temporal lobe dementia is very common. Mostly you see this before age 65, and it's a very quick, very, very quick dementia disease. And these individuals are very young, and the first sign of symptom is that they change their personality. It's almost like they were personal and they were compassionate, and next thing you know, this person is almost like a change of personality. And for some individuals, that change of personality can actually cost them their jobs, their marriages, friendships, etc. Because, guess what? Those two areas of the brain, the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe, are being affected by this disease. Now, the frontal lobe is really important to us. That is the area what Types of calls, it has a filter. And this filter is formed whenever we are growing up in life. So we learn early that we can't cuss at church, and that we have to wear clothing when we go out in public, and that you can't just go up to a stranger and give them a big kiss on the lips. So all those social norms are learned and is kept within this filter. So when the brain starts to break down because of this disease, that filter is lost. And next thing you know, this person who was compassionate and caring and outgoing, now that's starting to go away. And now they're showing some different types of behaviors and things that they would never do before. So next thing you know, dad is walking down the street and he's halfway naked. Or granny is starting to cuss at church. Or next thing you know, your husband goes up to a stranger and gives him a big kiss on the lips in the middle of a baseball game. So the frontal lobe is again, that area of the brain that's being affected. Some individuals have the temporal lobe, and that's the communication variant. So maybe they can't read like they used to, or when they try to read, the words are all scrambled and they can't read it. Sometimes the words that come out is something what we call word salad. So what they have in their head that comes out sounds good to them, but you and I hear words that are all discombobulated and make no sense. So again, frontal temporal lobe happens for individuals who are very, very young. Usually this happens in their 40s and 50s, but again, you can see it as even as early as in their 20s for some individuals. Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease is something that we see very often for individuals who had alcoholism for long periods of time. It's a thiamine disease. We see a lot of Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, especially in the homeless population. Wernicke-Korsakoff is a very unusual, and we don't see it very often. In fact, if you happen to have somebody who you know has Wernicke-Korsakoff, go run and get yourself a lottery ticket because it's that rare. But individuals, especially over in Great Britain, are still monitoring because what we have found is that mad cow disease is actually one of the main reasons for this Wernicke-Korsakoff being still in the communities over in Great Britain. So we here in the United States, we don't have a lot of these cases, but it's still something that we always have to monitor for. And the last one's Huntington's chorea. And Huntington's chorea is something that is a very genetic link. So if grandma has it, 50-50 chance that one of her kids have it, and again, 50-50 chance her grandkids will have it. Many individuals claim that Huntington's disease looks like Alzheimer's, along with a psychosis, along with kind of a Parkinson's, because it's like all mixed up in all three. It's a very cruel disease, unfortunately. And like I said, by the time somebody gets diagnosed with it, it already has passed through the genetic lines of family members. So let's talk about Alzheimer's, which is still our number one type of progressive disease. So what happens with Alzheimer's disease is that the neurons lose their ability to function and communicate with each other, and unfortunately, they eventually pass away. They die. And as Alzheimer's disease progresses, all these little microfibril tangles start to spread out through the brain, and next thing you have plaques that spread out through the brain as well. And once that happens, damage is widespread, and believe it or not, in many cases during autopsy, they have found that the brain shrinks about a third of the size it was even about 10 or 20 years before. Now, what they have found is that plaques and tangles of Alzheimer's disease starts to form approximately 10, 20, even 25 years before the first sign of symptom of Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So there's three different types of Alzheimer's disease that we look at. So we talk about age 65 because age 65 is that age where we have Medicare supplemented doctor's visits. So those are the visits where we have individuals who the physicians ask about the mini-mental, they do a depression screening, et cetera, et cetera. So if a person needs those mini-mental and maybe fails those mini-mental or, fails any of those tests before age 65 and they get identified for an Alzheimer's type dementia, they're considered what we call early onset. Now, sadly, the early onset, usually the younger a person gets diagnosed, the shorter the lifespan. Now, I know it says 2 to 5 years, but it really depends. All of these, as far as life expectancy, has a lot to do with the comorbidities. So if a person has heart disease, diabetes, any type of any of those other factors, then of course lifespan might be altered because of any of those comorbidities. So early onset is before 65. Okay, the earliest a person can have Alzheimer's, I've heard cases in their 20s, even late teens. But again, that's one of those things that we have to do a little bit more research on it. Was it something else? Was it another type of progressive disease and it just looked like Alzheimer's, etc.? Typical Alzheimer's is after age 65. And again, the lifespan is approximately 8 to 12 years, but I've worked with individuals who were diagnosed for 15, 20 years. And again, it has all to do with the comorbidities, which is why we always want to make sure that we eat well, we get plenty of sleep, we have stress reduction, we try to do any type of activities that stimulate their brain, etc. So the highest incidence that we see is over age 80, but again, typical Alzheimer's is from 65 and above. Now, the familial or genetic can be whenever that gene is triggered. So it could be before age 65 or after 65. It's really when that chromosome is triggered on that end. So for those of you who work with anyone who has developmental disabilities and delays, please know that chromosome 21, which is the additional chromosome that our individuals living with Down syndrome have, that is the chromosome which has the Alzheimer's gene, which is the reason why many of our individuals living with Down syndrome have a very high tendency to have an Alzheimer's type of dementia later in life. So the familial, for example, some examples for all of you if you need a identification of different individuals. Pat Summitt, who is a basketball coach for University of Tennessee, she had early onset Alzheimer's. President Ronald Reagan was diagnosed in his 80s, and that was typical Alzheimer's. And familial or genetic would be the Reswig family, who had 14 children, and 10 of them had early onset Alzheimer's disease. So if any of you are asking, how do I know if I have familial or genetic? So if you have a grandmother who had Alzheimer's and mom had Alzheimer's, you probably have a 50-50 chance of having Alzheimer's disease. Now, I've also had questions about how do I know? Do I do a genetic screening? You're welcome to do so, but I will say it's very expensive, and many of the healthcare providers / insurance will not cover that too. So if any of you are thinking about genetics, that's something to consider. But if you happen to have family members, that's just a ultimate case. So with Alzheimer's disease, the progression is something that everybody's a little bit different, but we usually see kind of a wave. We kind of understand the atypical progression of Alzheimer's disease. So it usually starts in the hippocampus, which is not shown here, but if you think about the center of the brain, it kind of looks like a little snail, kind of a horseshoe-shaped organ inside of our brain, and that's called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is the area of the brain that starts with short-term memory, mood changes, that type of thing, which is the reason why many individuals who might have those early plaques and tangles developing, these are individuals who can hide a lot of their memory loss. But if you see that they can still function really well with Post-it notes and calendars and reminders, and now that we have technology, every bell and whistle is being utilized, well, it could mean that the hippocampus is starting to be riddled with some of those plaques and tangles. When it starts hitting those hippocampus areas, still people can really hide them very well. So if you have any communities where individuals are living independently, or if they are in apartments or maybe assisted livings, these individuals, you can almost sit there and go, there it is, because of the fact that they can hide it really well. But as time goes on and as the disease progresses, you can see those little moments where you're like, there it is, oh, there it is again. And so you can start seeing how the progression of the disease then from the hippocampus goes to usually the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe, by the time it gets to that area, you have those red flags flying, because that's when the executive functions. Those are more of those advanced ADLs, taking medications and doing your checkbook and paying the bills and communication factors and transportation. All those things are now starting to become a little bit more iffy. They're having problems planning things out, and they get very frustrated when things aren't their way. And organizing, you're kind of sitting there going, what are they doing? That organizing is not the same thing. And problem solving becomes like you scratch your head going, what do you mean you use the scissors to cut your socks because you couldn't put them over your shoes? Their emotions are all over the place. I call that the emotional roller coaster. They're happy, they're sad. They're angry, they're sad. And when you ask them why they're angry, they can't tell you why. So it's like their emotional roller coasters all over the place. And their personalities are just not there all the time. It's almost maybe they're quieter and they don't want to socialize as much as maybe they were in the past. From there, they go into the temporal lobe. Now, the left temporal lobe is what I call the communication, and the right temporal lobe is what I call the artsy-fartsy. So the left temporal lobe is really for that communication. It has memory and understanding, language, reading, writing, all those type of things that go into our communication. Our right temporal lobe is actually one of the last places in our brain to be affected by plaques and tangles because it's one of the first places to be kind of developed. So that's the reason why we talk about music and memory. That's why we always want to do tempo when we're walking with somebody late in the disease process. That's why they can still remember songs like Jesus Loves Me or prayers well into the disease process because the right temporal lobe is most artsy. It has the most tempo, and individuals seem to keep that longer than any other area. The occipital lobes in the back of the brain, that's what we see and identify, and that's where it shoots to all the other areas of the brain to figure out what we see. So when a person sees something and it shoots back to the occipital lobe, as time goes on, these individuals are not going to have a brain that's going to identify what they see, which is why we call that brain blindness. So these individuals, as time goes on, sometimes can have difficulty with their peripheral vision. So they don't see things from the side. And they might be startled if you come from the side and not from the front. As time goes on, some of these individuals might even have something called tunnel vision, where they can't see below their nose or above their eyebrows. So it might be very difficult for them to do things that are very simple, like eating or maybe showering or bathing, and they get startled very much because of the fact they can't see what you and I can see and scan. Then we have an area of the brain that we call the parietal lobe. And you can see that on the top, that green area. Doctors and physicians call that the area of the brain that makes sense of the world. So things like our words and temperature control and makes sense of arithmetic and everything that we can think about, it just kind of makes sense when it has that parietal part of the lobe area. Now we're going to talk about our later stages. Now we're talking about our probably our level 4s, 5s, 6s, those individuals. And this is where the areas of brain are now being affected by the movement area, the motor cortex. So these people are starting to move a lot or not a lot at all. Sometimes they rock. Sometimes they move differently. Sometimes they clap their hands or touch everything. Everything has to do with movement coordination. For some individuals, this is a time where they stop walking or walk even more. Our sensory cortex is one of the last areas. And this is where sensations, so they touch things, taste things, aromatherapy. These are individuals who touch and put everything in their mouths. And at times, this is where the only thing they can make sense of the world is through the sensations about their bodies. And then the very end is their brainstem. That's the area of the brain that controls breathing, heart, as well as respiration. Now, this is just atypical. Not everybody's atypical. But this is kind of how the trajectory, this is kind of how we see many of our individuals living with Alzheimer's has that change going on. And as I said, with vascular dementia, it doesn't have this. It can go different parts of the brain. And even with Lewy, it's a little bit different. And Parkinson's is a little bit different. So that's the reason why we always say when a person gets diagnosed with a dementia disease, we want to know which one so that we as care providers, caregivers and care partners have a better understanding so we can prepare and understand the journey that they're going to be on. So talking about the journey, I always love to talk about retrogenesis. And retrogenesis is a theory that suggests the brain of a person with Alzheimer's disease deteriorates in the reverse order that the brain was developed from birth. And it's all about functional age. Now, as a professional caregiver for many years and working with many individuals and joining their journey, we talk about joining their journey. See, individuals living with Alzheimer's are on a different journey path than you and I are. And even though we try to have them join our journey, unfortunately, that can't happen. We can only join their journey. So let's talk about the journey of dementia. So the way I like to explain this, some people like to do it as an onion. I like a swing. So I want all of you thinking about a swing. So bring your hand all the way up, your right hand up, and go back and forth like you're directing music. So at the very top, I want you to think about birth. And what kind of things can you do after birth? Well, you can cry, which is a form of communication, and you can do iodine scanning, and you can suck, right? You can suck a bottle, nipples, things like that. But almost all the care has to be provided by individuals around you, family members, caregivers, etc. So now I want your hand to go a little bit farther, and now I want you to think toddler years, between 1 and, say, 4. Their favorite word is no. And the reason why the word no is so important because that's the easiest word in our vocabulary. We have to actually think about the word yes, and we have to think about mama and dada. So the word no is that favorite word because we can say it until the sun falls down, and we always get either an I or we know how to press the buttons of our family members because of that favorite word. So I can easily say no, 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 no. You want a cookie? No. Yes, yes, cookie. I like cookie. So the word no. And then we have our basic needs that we need to know how to potty train, and we need to know how to tie your shoes. And even if I'm the coolest aunt in the whole wide world, 2-year-old is still probably going to cry, stranger danger, because they still don't recognize who you are. So again, the toddler years are really, really special, and we learn a lot during this time. This is really where our first ADLs are really formed. So our swing goes down a little bit farther. Let's talk about school age, between, say, 5 and, say, 12 years old. So we learn the reading and the writing and the arithmetic. We learn friendships. We learn our ADLs again, how to sit and how to learn rules and how to do all these things that mom and dad told us. And we follow this teacher everywhere because we're told we have to. And then our swing goes a little bit farther. And Lord help us, now we're talking our teen years. So between 13 and 19. So during this time, we learn about sexuality and we learn about more independence. And now we're learning about advanced ADLs, like paying bills and going to the doctor's office and going to learn how to drive a car and making more friends and staying away from our parental identity. We want to do our own identity. So we have a lot of things going on as our teen years. Our swing goes a little bit farther, and now we're in our 20s and 30s. And now we have new roles. For example, wife or husband or spouse, parent. We might have graduated from school. We might have had a car and a house. They're very important to us. So during this time period, we're really expanding who we are and identify who we are. Our swing goes really high up, and now we're retired. So now 65. So now I'm able to enjoy life. I'm going to be able to sleep in. I'm going to have to be able to do whatever I want and take travel and vacation. And now I get diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's type. And so now my swing goes backwards. So now I'm a body of an 80-year-old, but because of my disease process, I can only remember and do the skills I was able to do when I was 20. So when I was 20, I was dating a really cute hunk. I wasn't dating an old man with gray hair, and I certainly wasn't a mother yet. So when this old man comes to visit me and calls me his wife, I don't know who that guy is. I'm looking for the cute little hunk who definitely wasn't the weight he is. And I don't have children, so I don't know who these young men are. I'm looking for, when they say I want to go home, I'm looking for my home when I was in college. I'm looking for my dorm room. I'm looking for my car, my Mercury Topaz, my 1990 Mercury Topaz. And I'm looking for my friends that I had, and I'm not looking for what I have right now. So for many family members, this is very disheartening because they don't understand what's going on with mom. So my swing goes a little bit farther down. And so now I'm a body of an 80-year-old, but because of my disease process, I can only remember and do the things I was able to do when I was 13. So now I have hypersexuality. Now I'm hanging out with all these cuties, and unfortunately some of those cuties might be my grandchildren. And now don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do because I'm this independent. And now I'm starting to want to be more independent than ever before. So don't tell me what to do. So my swing goes a little bit farther, and now I'm in my childhood. Now I'm a body of an 80-year-old, but I can only remember and do the functional skills I was able to do when I was 5. So now I don't remember being a trainer. I don't remember going to college. I don't remember balancing my checkbook. I never took meds when I was 5, so I don't know how to take those things. And to be honest with you, I don't know how to use this TV set because back in my day, we didn't have a remote control. It was me as a kid. So now I don't understand what's going on. I'm looking for my mom. I'm looking for my dad. And if you tell me mom and dad died 25, 30 years ago, I am absolutely disheartened because I don't understand. I'm living in the here and now, and you're telling me that's not here and now. So now my swing a little bit farther. I'm now a body of an 80-year-old, but I can only remember and do the skills I had when I was 2. No, no, no. You want a cookie? No, yes, yes, I want a cookie. Stranger danger. I don't know who you are. You could be the coolest person in the whole wide world, but I don't know who you are anymore. I know you're important to me, but I don't know how you fit in my puzzle of my life. Now I'm starting to become more incontinent, and I need you to help me. And I don't know how to tell you because the words are starting to be gone. And then my swing goes all the way down. So now I'm a body of an 80-year-old, but because of my disease process, I can only remember and do the things I was able to do after birth. I no longer have words. I no longer have the ability to tell you how you make me feel. And now I need you more than ever before because I can't do the things I used to be able to do. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all about retrogenesis. It's all about functional age. So this is about how we walk and join their journey. Because early in their disease process, they were able to be judgment and have reasoning. They were able to have safety awareness. They were able to have concentration and focusing. But as the time goes on and as this disease progresses, I no longer have those abilities to have good reasoning skills. I don't have those safety awareness any longer. And even communication skills, I would have been able to have a great conversation with you early in my disease, but now I can only say hi or yes or help me, help me, help me, help me. So please join their journey. They can't join ours any longer. And so as caregivers, as community members out there, to be able to help individuals living with dementia, we have to join their journey and understand about their functional age. Where are they on that swing? And I wish I could say that the swing stays permanent where they are. Unfortunately, many of these individuals, the swing can even change throughout the day or even the hour. For some individuals, they will have great and no problems communicating first thing in the morning, but by 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're done. They don't have any words left and they're stuck. So join their journey. So before we leave, I wanted to bring up some neurological deficits that are very common for individuals living with different dementia diseases. For example, apraxia, which is the coordination and movement of their muscles starts to become damaged. So they may not be able to walk or talk or even swallow at the end of their disease process because the muscles are just not coordinating like they used to. Visual clifting, they might have difficulty with depth changes or perception. So now you have to watch them to make sure that they lift up their legs when they're walking over a curb. Or now they might be tripping over the threshold between a hardwood surface and a carpeting. Fascination, they might have only one speed, fast. And the only way to stop might be, unfortunately, a door, a wall, or an individual. So these individuals might have a high risk for falls. Anomia, inability to find that, you know what I'm talking about, that word, you know what I'm talking about, right? That thingamabob, you know. Amnesia, information that is lost. They don't remember passwords. They don't remember what happened 5 minutes ago, what they had for lunch, and they are not going to remember what they did today or a memory that may even happened about 10 years ago. Agnosia, inability to recognize what an object is used for, what it's seen. I love this photo. A lady is brushing her hair with a fork. It looks like a comb, but it's not. I've actually had an individual who was trying to brush his teeth with a razor. He had a mistake between a Bic razor and a toothbrush, and luckily I walked in the bathroom to assist him before the damage was done. So again, agnosia means that a person doesn't know exactly what an item is used for. Postural writing reflexes, many times these individuals start to dip forward or have difficulty standing straight. So they might become unbalanced, which unfortunately can also cause individuals to fall. And last but not least, a scissor stepping gait. This is when you see many individuals almost crisscrossing their legs, and that could trip them, especially if they are using a walker or cane and in unlevel surfaces. Dimensional losses are also very common. Individuals may no longer have, remember that brain blindness, they may not understand dimensions. So imagine seeing their world as if it were on a sheet of a magazine. So many individuals might have that issue, and they also might have what we say, remember that peripheral vision issues as well. So that is the end of my question and answers for today and our presentation. So I'm going to send this back to Carrie to see if there are any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you so much, Patty. That was very informative and well presented. I am not seeing any questions at this time. Anyone, if you have questions, please make sure you're entering them, and I can give everyone just a few seconds to see. If there are no questions, you will receive a thank you for attending email if you were on the call today. And this will also be available via our YouTube. I do have wonderful and highly informative training. Thank you. Not a question, but a positive feedback remark.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing anything else. So with that, I guess we will end the training. And thank you again so much, Patty, and everyone who attended today. I appreciate your support.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. If anyone would like any more education or training, please visit our website at www.alzni.org. That's for Alzheimer's and Dementia Services in Northern Indiana. We are part of Real Services, which is our area agency on aging. So all the support, all the resources are all for free. So it doesn't matter where you are around the country, all those support services and resources are all available for you.
Thank you for that information. If you have that somewhere that's available, we can even send it out to the people that were on the call.
Okay, I sure will.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.